Have you ever felt like your emotions were running the show? Like one moment you're fine, and the next you're overwhelmed, frustrated, or just off? Life has a way of sneaking up on us like that. I've been there too, juggling responsibilities, caring for loved ones, and trying to keep it all together, only to feel like my emotions are pulling me in every direction. But here's the thing, you don't have to stay stuck on that emotional roller coaster. Journaling has been my go to tool for finding clarity and balance, even on the hardest days. And today, I want to share how it can do the same for you. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hi, I'm Frida, and welcome to my channel where we prioritize self care through journaling. Today, I'm inviting you to join me in a conversation about emotional balance, something that often feels harder and harder to maintain with everything life throws at us. I've had my share of days when I felt like I was on that emotional roller coaster that I mentioned. Up one minute, down the next, and it left me feeling absolutely drained and exhausted. But one thing that has really helped me time and time again is journaling. And don't worry, I'm not talking about writing a novel. I'm talking about using journaling as a tool to understand what's going on in your heart and your mind and finding a way to bring a little calm to the chaos. Let's take a moment, as if we're chatting over coffee, and explore how journaling can not only help us ride out life's emotional waves, but also find steadiness within them. One of the most powerful things about journaling is how it helps you to see yourself. So often we go through life on autopilot, just moving from one thing to the next without pausing to check in with how we're really doing. I've been guilty of this myself more times than I would like to admit. Before I started journaling consistently, I didn't realize how much I was actually internalizing stress. Little things would send me spiraling on that emotional roller coaster that I mentioned. And I didn't truly understand where that intense frustration was coming from. That's where journaling can be such an eye opener. When we put pen to paper, it's like holding up a mirror to our emotional state. We start to notice patterns. Maybe you're more irritable after certain meetings, or more anxious when your schedule's packed. When I started journaling, I noticed that my mood took surprising turns whenever I was overcommitted. It wasn't obvious to me at first because I've always loved staying busy, especially when helping others. But writing it down made me realize I was stretching myself way too thin. Here's a practical tip for you. Try this. For the next week, set aside 5 minutes a day to jot down how you're feeling. You don't have to write a lot, just a sentence or two about your emotions that day. At the end of the week, go back and read what you wrote. Are there any patterns? Are there days that your emotions seemed out of balance more than others? Once you notice those patterns, you can start to dig a little deeper into why these patterns actually exist. From there, you'll be able to determine the best course of action to ensure that you're prioritizing yourself and your self care. We live in a world that's constantly telling us to stay positive and to keep it all together. But let's be real. It's not realistic to think that we can always be positive and always be happy. And you know what? That's okay. Journaling gives us permission to feel exactly what we're feeling without any judgment. I'll be honest, when caring for my mom who has dementia, there are days when I feel like I'm completely failing. I've had moments of frustration and sadness, and I didn't feel like I could express that to anyone else because it felt like I'm always supposed to be strong all the time. And when I did express my feelings to others, the responses I usually received were either dismissive or even worse, they were meant to shame me for expressing my feelings of overwhelm. Journaling became my safe space. I could pour out my feelings and frustrations without worrying about what anyone else would say in response to my thoughts or what they would think. There's something incredibly freeing about having a place and a safe space where you can be real, where you don't have to edit yourself. I remember one particularly tough day. I had been balancing work, family, caring for my mom, who again has dementia, which brings lots of challenges. And it just all hit me. My emotions were all over the place. I grabbed my journal and just wrote. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't poetic, but it was honest. And when I was done, it felt like I had lifted this huge weight off of my shoulders. I didn't have a solution to everything that I was going through, but I had given myself the space to feel what I was feeling. And that made a world of a difference for me. Here's my question for you. What's something you've been holding on to emotionally? Could journaling help you unpack that? Try giving yourself permission to write down exactly what you're feeling, even if it feels messy. Now, let's talk about reframing negative thoughts. I don't know about you, but there have been plenty of times when I've gotten stuck in a negative thought spiral. Maybe something didn't go as planned, or I let myself down in some way, and suddenly that one thought spirals into, I'm not good enough, or I never get it right. But here's the thing, journaling is a great way to catch those negative thoughts and turn them around. When we write down those negative thoughts, it's like we're putting them under a microscope. We can examine them. You can ask yourself, is this really true? 9 times out of 10, you'll find that the thought is either an exaggeration, I'm great at those, or just plain wrong. Let me give you an example. I sometimes draw a line down the center of my page in my journal, and I write down my frustrations on one side, and then on the other side of the page, I write down a positive truth to counter that negative thought. For instance, if I wrote, I'm not doing enough, I could follow that up with, I'm doing the best that I can, and that's all I can do. It's a simple practice, but it works wonders. Here's another practical tip for you. The next time you catch yourself in a negative thought pattern, open your journal and write it down. Then try to reframe that thought into something more constructive. It doesn't have to be overly positive, it just has to be something that is true and grounded in reality. Isn't just about processing our emotions in that moment. It can also help us create a pattern for our emotional balance moving forward. Once we start noticing our patterns and reframing those negative thoughts, we can use our journals to set some intentional goals. Here are a few questions you can reflect on. How can you make more space for the things that bring you peace? How can you avoid the things that tend to knock you off balance? For me, I started journaling about what I wanted my ideal week to look like, what activities would bring me joy, what boundaries did I need to set? That's a huge one. Over time, I started making small adjustments, like saying no to things that didn't serve me well, and carving out more time to prioritize myself and my self care routine. And you know what? It truly has made a difference. So, my question to you, what's one change you can make to bring more balance to your life? Write it down in your journal and start working on that today. At the end of the day, journaling isn't about being perfect. It's just about being you, taking the time to check in with yourself, process your emotions, and create a space for balance in your life. If you've been feeling out of sorts emotionally, I encourage you to try it. Start with just a few minutes a day and see how it feels. And if you're looking for a journal to help you get started, I've created a collection of journals designed with you and self care in mind. Each one is designed to inspire you on your self care journaling journey. Thank you for hanging out with me today. If this video was helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who may benefit from what we've discussed. In the next video, we'll be talking about self compassion, how to be kinder to yourself, especially on those hard days. So keep journaling, and I'll see you in the next video.